All right. Welcome back to the Partnership Mastermind podcast, the show where you get out of the theory and into the plays that actually move the needle. I'm your host, Chris Lavoie, and today we've got a CMO who's been quietly rewriting the GTM playbook while leading one of the biggest names in the partner tech space. We have Tyler Calder on the show today, who's been at the helm of marketing at PartnerStack for 5 years now, growing pipeline value by over 50%, aligning entire GTM teams around ICP, and somehow still finding time to teach the next generation of marketers at the University of Toronto. Tyler, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Very excited.
Amazing. Well, look, we always start each episode with 5 quick-hitting questions just to warm you up and get the audience to know you a bit better. So just the first thing that comes to mind. You ready for that?
Let's do it.
All right, man. First up, hoodie or no hoodie? What's your go-to CMO uniform on a high-stakes day?
So, it's got to be hoodie, but it's going to be a 4-layer day, right? So I'm going to do undershirt, I'm going to do a collared button-up, I'm going to do hoodie, then I'm going to do blazer.
Got it. Love that. That's pretty epic. I mean, if you can see Tyler, if you're watching this on YouTube, he's got his hoodie on. Love it. Sweet. Next up, if PartnerStack could sponsor any outrageous event where there's no budget limits, what would it be and why?
So I'm going to give you 2 answers. That's not what you asked, but I'm going to give you 2. The one I think is very possible. I have always wanted to sponsor an event where we end it with an epic drone show. Like, have you seen those drone shows on YouTube? And yeah, I've always wanted to do that. So if anybody out there is looking for some of our budget, toss in a drone show and I'm in. If there's no limits, I'm going zero gravity pickleball tournament. I think having to compete with a lack of gravity would be interesting. And I've seen an intersection between our target accounts and buyers and lovers of pickleball. So there's a good little fit there. Let's get in space. Let's have some fun with it. Why not?
I need you coordinating any activities I ever do, because you can definitely sign me up for that. Cool. Next one. If you had to explain partnerships to your daughter using only a baseball analogy, how would you do it?
So the one thing you'll learn about me, or people would learn about me, is any sort of analogy, metaphor, anything. I can't land them, but I will attempt it. I think you got to go, at least with the current state of partnerships, utility player. That's the analogy that I would use. You're not necessarily in the spotlight every inning.
Love that.
You're not necessarily on all the commercials. But you can step in, you can play shortstop, you can play center field, you can hit for power, you can hit for contact, you can steal a base when the team needs it. And so, yeah, you're maybe not getting all the glory, but you're filling all of those critical roles at exactly the right moments to make sure the team's winning. I think I'd probably go with that.
You landed it. You definitely, undersold yourself. That was a really great analogy. And I totally picking up what you're laying down. You're maybe not, the headline stats, but your on base percentage, you're bunting, you're moving the bases along, which is the pipeline. Love it.
100%. Yeah.
Love that. That's a good one. That's probably going to be the headline of this episode. Next question for you. What's one marketing trend that you just wish would die?
So I've gotten this question and I use the same response, which is the trend to suggest everything is dead. I can't stand it, right? Outbound is dead. Paid media is dead. SEO is dead. Personalization is dead. Everything is dead. And it just drives me bonkers because none of these things are dead. How to extract value out of these things has certainly changed. Some of the channels have seen diminishing returns for sure. A lot of it is harder. Like everything we're doing now is harder, but they're not dead. And so rather than claiming something is dead, what I'd rather see people do is talk about, well, what do we actually do? How do we actually make these channels work? Give me some actual tangible, education on what we can do here. Because for us, we talk about this, right? Paid media is tougher. SEO is tougher. Outreach is tougher. All of these things are tougher, but we still do them because they're still effective and they work. The biggest difference is we're attaching partners to a lot of them. And that sounds like a very biased thing for me to say with where I'm coming from and the company I work for. But it's the absolute truth is you can still do these things really, really well And we see the big unlock being, well, we're attaching partners to a lot of what we do. Like we're running joint campaigns with paid media. We're doing joint outbound, content creation for organic purposes or AI search visibility is largely coming from partner generated content. So all of these things are still working. And to say they're dead, what you find is people completely walk away from them versus figuring out, what's the new approach to making the thing work. So I could talk about that for a while.
I appreciate you saying that. You're right. Like it's, all jokes aside, it can be quite harmful, especially for like more influential earlier stage folks who are like, oh, so-and-so said it's dead. I guess I better just give up on that. And it's crazy what I see. I saw something recently where it's like, oh, Gong's dead now because of something OpenAI launched. And then, oh, HubSpot's dead now because you can like spin up a CRM in 6 seconds through vibe coding on the weekend, right, with your mom's credit card. Doesn't work that way. So I'm glad you've kind of shined a light on how dangerous that can be.
And I know this is meant to be rapid fire, but what you just said, I do think it's dangerous because it's leading, there's new stats coming out about just how much burnout it's leading to. And the burnout is coming from people hearing like what you just said, HubSpot is dead. You can vibe code, your own CRM right now. And people spend 20 hours a day trying to figure out how to do it because I feel like if they don't figure out how to do those things, they're out of a job. And they're burning out because they have the pressure to actually deliver results and then the pressure to go and try to, do everything they read on LinkedIn. And the reality is most of these things that you see on LinkedIn, like I've chatted to a lot of the people posting this stuff and they'll admit it's like, well, it's maybe 50%, 40% of what I suggest. And so anyways, I think there's a lot more just genuine kind of honesty that we could be having out in market about what's real and what's not. And I think that's what we got to do to help push everybody forward versus just, try to sell my services, I'll say.
I agree. Yeah, it's fair to say things are evolving and the way we do things has changed, but it doesn't mean we have to say things are just dead. Cool. Last quick hitter for you is if you weren't busy building revenue engines, what's a passion project you'd be chasing right now?
Oh, open a sandwich shop.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Can one be passionate about sandwiches?
Absolutely.
Perfect.
My wife works for Subway Canada, kind of helping reimagine their marketing, and so I'm a huge Subway fan. So the last question on that one, what's the first sandwich you'd be making when you open up that shop? And be specific.
Oh, Reuben. It's got to be my take on a Reuben.
Giddy-o.
Yeah.
All right. Well, maybe I'll have like a bonus section at the very end to get the specifics on that. But we'll keep it moving for now. Now that we've warmed up, so let's get into the fun stuff. And we want to start with kind of your kind of entry into your current position at PartnerStack, right? So you've been Canada's first HubSpot agency guy. You've built affiliate programs from scratch. You ran a 100 million plus reseller program with no real tools. How did that winding road ultimately land you at PartnerStack? Let's start there.
I mean, I have said that we were Canada's first HubSpot agency. I'm fairly certain that's true. Let's say we were one of the first.
Sure. No one's policing this podcast yet.
I just like to throw the caveats out there. It has been a winding career for me, agency side, and then a lot of in-house roles, startup, enterprise, B2B, B2C. In a few of those instances, like you mentioned, I kind of stumbled into either directly being involved in partnerships or very much partnership adjacent. I would not suggest I am a partnership professional. I think, your listeners, people that take your course, our customers, like they're in the trenches every single day. But through my journey, to your point, I stood up an affiliate program from scratch and found on the market there was really nothing there to do what I wanted it to do, to provide the experience to my affiliates that I wanted to provide. And so we ended up building something from scratch internally. It was a total nightmare to get done. It took almost a year. But once we launched it, it ended up becoming a $4 million channel very quickly and then grew to about a $6 million channel. And then, in another role, enterprise, like I was not hired to do this. It was my second week. They're like, hey, we got this reseller program. It's kind of a mess. Can you look at it and see what we can do? It ended up being a $200 million reseller program managed not even through spreadsheets, like emails just flying back and forth and finance team trying to reconcile things. And so again, started to look at kind of the technology that was available, and again, didn't really find anything that would provide the experience that I wanted to provide. And that's what it sort of kept coming back to, was the tech could probably do what we wanted it to do, but none of it could provide the experience to the partners that we wanted to provide. And then I came out of an exit and wasn't actually planning to jump back into tech or a full-time gig. I was planning to go deeper into teaching and maybe consulting. And PartnerStack came along through a referral, a previous CEO that I worked with, and folks I knew at that company recommended me. Chatted with Bryn, our CEO, Luke, one of the co-founders, the board, got a demo of the product, talked to some customers, and it was everything that would have solved what I was trying to solve for. And the super unique thing was I could have done both affiliate and reseller in the platform, which, still doesn't really exist. And so when you're kind of staring at something that could have solved the pain that I was feeling previously, it felt like a no-brainer to jump in and join. And so we made it happen. Bryn and Luke were kind enough to actually let me go part-time so I could wrap up a few things, spend a little bit more time with my daughter, who was just learning to walk at the time. And we said, hey, let's do it for a quarter. And, if it doesn't work out over that quarter, we can part ways and no hard feelings. But it worked out. That was 5 years ago. And I say that last part because I always think it's interesting. I think there's something there about, testing, an exec out with the team if you're able to. It's kind of an interesting move.
Doesn't happen enough. Well, a great kind of background to lead us into your current stint at PartnerStack, which is not being really successful. Want to dig deeper into kind of the origin story of your time at PartnerStack, and we'll get to the really exciting, successful outcomes, but we also like to dig into the crap on this show. So let's start there. Take us to your first oh crap moment at PartnerStack where you're like, okay, this thing's on fire, right? And what was that? And ultimately, what did you do first?
So I think the first thing was, in the first week, realizing that like genuinely there was no marketing in place. People will say that, right? Like, wait, we want to bring you on as the first marketing. We don't really have a marketing function. But usually there's something, right? You got content. Some inbound coming, you got some content, you got, people that know about you. And there was some content, but that was about it. It was very much still founder-led sales. That's not totally fair. They had successfully moved from founder-led sales to the first few dedicated AEs.
Right. Pure outbound.
But it was pure outbound, pure sales. That wasn't the concerning part. The concerning part was I started to see ourselves in enterprise deals, and those prospects would be getting feedback from analysts, right? Every enterprise wants to de-risk. They'd go to an analyst. Analysts give some feedback. And the feedback they were getting from analysts was, we don't know who PartnerStack is. You're nuts to think about going with PartnerStack. Like, you got to go with a big incumbent. Like, you're an enterprise. What are you thinking? And so that's always a terrifying proposition where you got very influential voices speaking out pretty directly against you. When you can actually break it in the enterprise, like the fact that we're getting these enterprise conversations, but then, it's a real battle to win them.
is the blocker, not even product.
Huge. Yeah, exactly. So that was probably the first oh crap moment. And, that can be a pretty hard hill to climb without just throwing a shit ton of money at it, right? Like, if you got millions to blow to just kind of try to build a category, build awareness, like, you can just brunt force it. But we didn't have that. And so I was about to say luckily, not quite luckily, but COVID hit and everybody went remote my second full-time week with PartnerStack. And so we looked at that as an opportunity to try to make a splash. And the splash was realizing every event, every conference that people were planning to go to was now canceled. We saw nobody replace it with anything virtually. So we jumped on it and said, let's just say it right now. We're hosting a virtual summit full day in 3 weeks. And then we use that as the opportunity to go get the customers we did have. We invited those analysts into the event, and we ended up pulling it off. We had about 2,000 people register. And what ended up, it felt like sort of our coming out party. What ended up happening was we had all of our customers, really great brands, really great senior titles. We had the analysts that didn't even know who we were now speaking about partnerships. And it helped kind of catapult us and our name in the space a little bit. It gave us 6 months of content of just slicing and dicing all of the sessions. And that was sort of a rallying moment to say, hey, like there is something here around, what we're trying to build, because people are so receptive to it. The feedback was incredible. We gotta keep obviously leaning into this, but yeah, I would say that was the oh crap, but how we, pretty quickly kind of took advantage of a pretty shitty situation in COVID, and turned it around that way. And then we've just, continued to keep pushing on it.
Love the transparency. I think any marketing leader, really any GTM leader, can take a lot of solace in just hearing you say, like, you know what, I came in and that there was really genuinely nothing. But I loved about that answer, Tyler. You gave us like a really pragmatic approach to kind of getting things started. And my next question was going to be, hey, what was that early win that made you think, yep, this thing is going to work? But then you answered it with this like signature event. And anyone who's tried to organize a virtual event, I can't tell you how insane it is to get 2,000 signups. Even in the COVID boom era, like it's really difficult to drive people to sign up, and it's especially hard to get them to tune in. And one thing I think that's a great tip there for any marketing leaders is that's one of the great first activities you can ship, because you personally, as the marketing leader, get to really see what resonates for your customers and your partner ecosystem. So I'm sure, Tyler, you probably learn so much more about how users actually view the product, use the product, get value from the product. I'm sure you learned so much that you didn't just catalyze your event playbook, but you actually probably unlocked a ton of insights that helped drive your early strategy.
So you're bang on with that. Like exactly. Like I got to interview all of these customers. We worked together on putting their presentations together. The interesting thing that we did was every session was actually pre-recorded. And we pre-recorded it, number one, because I was terrified. Like we did it through Zoom. We didn't have proper tech for, large scale webinars. I didn't know what was going to happen if people's tech broke. I was like, let's just pre-record it. A bunch of the speakers hated the idea of pre-recording it, because they're like, I want to be able to engage. I want it to be live. But what ended up happening was, number one, through the pre-recording, I was able to watch everything. And for a few of them, ended up making some pretty meaningful, I think, changes for the better. But also really helped us figure out, oh, you know what? There's this session that we know these prospects would be really interested in. We're going to invite them in knowing specifically that session is going to be for them. The other thing it did was engagement was actually through the roof because it was pre-recorded. The speakers could really engage in the chat, right? Like you're in a live webinar, everybody says, I'll answer questions live. It's like, it's really hard to, because you're presenting. So that happened. To your point, we got a bunch of great product feedback. We also got a list of 2,000 people that then became our initial, like real list to go work with campaigning and outbound and, all of that. So that one event, to your point, a really good kind of first big type of campaign to launch because of how much we were able to wrap around it and learn from it.
Love that. I'm a huge fan of events for a variety of reasons, several of which you just alluded to. So let's continue down the journey now. We're progressing forward. You've kind of found your fit, so to speak, and figuring out what works. Let's get into a deep dive on your affiliate to flywheel playbook, right? You've got this motion, start with affiliate, influencer, creator to build the demand, and then route that demand to the right closer, whether direct or partner. Can you break that down for the audience? How is that such an important engine ultimately that you've been kind of refining over the last few years?
Yeah. So, we've always had this belief at PartnerStack and what we've tried to build for that all of your indirect revenue should be treated as a single strategy. You should be looking at it holistically. You should be figuring out how they connect together. And most organizations don't. They're different teams, right? You got your marketing team typically looking at creators, affiliates, influencers, very much focused on performance-oriented metrics like pipeline, sourced revenue, hyper aware of like CAC to LTV. Like it is like performance marketing at its finest. And then, you have, folks that are running agency programs, technology programs, it's co-sell, it's resell. They're, leveraging a PRM likely to manage all of that. And that's doing its thing, right? It's also trying to build pipeline. It's also trying to source revenue and influence revenue. But what we always saw as the opportunity was you should have one side helping you achieve really strategic objectives like, breaking into new buying groups, breaking into new geographies. And a lot of people don't think of affiliates like that, right? People think of affiliate as kind of this, some people think it has a negative connotation to it. Maybe it's a little bit sketchy, but it's like, no, these are people that are publishing really great pieces of content relevant to you and your audience. They have just as much trust as a co-sell partner might. It just happens to be maybe a bigger audience that is a little bit more anonymous is kind of how we thought about it, right? They have a following, they have people reading their content, but maybe they're not driving direct referrals. They don't have a close relationship. You're not necessarily co-selling with them, but they can help you do those really meaningful things. Like I said, break into the enterprise, break into new buying groups, break into geographies. They can help you build that demand and that awareness in those strategic areas that maybe you're struggling to. And of course, they can do it with kind of the bread and butter of your business as well. So if you get them focused on building the right type of demand for the business, that can really help spike the volume of pipeline that you're driving. And then, and this is where, there's a certain level of sophistication that comes in working with your RevOps team, figuring out, different scoring models, identifying like propensity to close type of scoring, using that to route to a PLG motion, your direct rep, or a certain partner that might be best equipped to close. And so for us, that's really what the flywheel has looked like, is how do we use that one side to build the right type of demand? So it's a lot of work to make sure we're crystal clear on the type of content those partners are building, what a good lead looks like versus a bad lead. And then working with our RevOps team, leveraging some of the data that we get out of PartnerStack to build our own scoring model, then to help route it, right? So again, do we route it to a direct team internally based on whatever signals we see? If it's going to go to a partner, which partner should we loop in? And that's been a huge boon to our efficiency as a go-to-market team. And then the customers we see doing that really well, same thing. It's been a pretty big boon to their efficiency. But I won't suggest it is easy, right? There is a level of sophistication and resourcing needed to build those models and that intelligence. And, probably no secret, it's something that we would plan to build into PartnerStack in the future, especially with the rise of AI. I think that's such a good use case. But it was manually built internally ourselves to make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, anyone listening to this, that's a really, clear kind of step-by-step process to build this. And one of the clear to me big reasons that this works is the rigorous ICP focus. Right? I think that's something that I really admire about you and getting to know you is just how focused you are on the customer, but ultimately understanding who the ideal customer profile is. So can you unpack that for us? Just like how central and important is nailing that ICP a part of that flywheel that you just walked us through?
Yeah, I mean, I'll share I'll share something that, if anybody on our ELT is listening, I'm sure you're fine with me sharing this. If I go back, maybe 4 years or so, like I was coming off of my first year, I was feeling really good because we had gone from, 0% of pipeline and revenue sourced through marketing channels to 55% plus. Felt good. Q1 going into my second year, almost 50% of that revenue that we closed the prior 2 quarters wanted to churn.
Wow.
Not good, right? Pretty leaky bucket.
That's tough.
And it's interesting, right? Because then finger pointing starts. The interesting thing was no fingers were really being pointed at marketing. It was, well, sales didn't set the right expectation. CS can't, they can't retain these customers. They can't, they can't be strategic. There's product gaps, whatever it might be. And then, I kind of was like, well, I got to own up to this. It's like, this is marketing, right? Like marketing to me is where all of this starts. If you have a leaky bucket, that is marketing. Marketing is responsible for identifying who your ICP is, putting programs together to bring them in. And so we looked at that and said, we think we're off. We can find people who are raising their hand that are interested and will buy PartnerStack, but we're not doing a good job of qualifying whether or not we can actually provide the level of value that we should be. And so we went through a pretty rigorous process to, again, starting internally with our RevOps team, our finance team, really to figure out what are the patterns and signals that suggest somebody is a great fit for PartnerStack, meaning PartnerStack is going to deliver a ton of value to them. We came up with a bunch of signals. We back tested it with our historical data, customers that were growing and expanding with us versus customers that were churning. And those patterns emerged. The data was good, but it wasn't overly usable at that point. We then partnered and started to work with a company called KeyPlay, which I love shouting them out all the time because they've been such a huge help to us. They helped us really refine those models. So now we have, upwards of 40 to 60 signals that helps us predict whether or not somebody's going to see enough value at a PartnerStack that they're a good fit. And we've scored 45,000 accounts, 50,000 accounts at this point. And we've tiered them A, B, C, and D. What I try to remind people is not that a D account is bad. It's that today we can't provide as much value to a D account as we can an A account. And so let's go try to work with the people, market and sell to the people that are an A and B because we know and we're confident we can provide value. And then product, why we can't provide value to C and D right now. Let's figure out what we should prioritize in the product on our roadmap to make sure we can provide as much value to them as possible. Because our belief is partnerships should be accessible to every business in the world. And it's really hard to do that, right? It's right now, you can't say partnerships is, should be your first go-to-market motion for every company. But there's probably something that we could do to make that more likely. And so even those signals are helping feed into roadmap. And now everything we do is aligned with those models. So when we say ICP, historically we would have said B2B SaaS. That's it.
Yeah.
That's our ICP,
Okay.
B2B
Sure.
SaaS. Now we have way more signals to really help define it, and everybody knows. So that's probably been the biggest game changer is alignment around that.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, really appreciate the humility and kind of vulnerability there of just peeling back the curtain, saying, you know what, we went through some turbulence and I had to kind of raise my hand and take ownership around some of these churn problems we're having. But on that latter piece of your story there, one thing I loved about your scoring model is it indexes as it should on, hey, the higher scoring accounts are the ones that are most likely to get value from our product versus how 90% of companies do their ABM target account scoring, which is, hey, which accounts are the most likely to close in a sales cycle? those are sometimes the same things, but as you know better than I do, they're often different, right? So the last quick one, and we'll try to keep this quick. How important is it, just to drill down, to really build these scoring models, indexing on probability of them getting value from your product versus just, hey, based on data, these are the accounts that are most likely to purchase our software? Because I think we'd agree those are fundamentally different.
Candidly, I think it is the most critical thing a business can do. And I don't think it is a marketing thing. Like it is a core, like ELT strategic decision to get this focused. But I think it's absolutely critical, especially the way tech is, how tough it is. Like if you've got a leaky bucket and you're selling to people who just want to buy without really thinking about whether or not you can truly help them, I mean, your business is dead. You're just not going to be able to outrun that leaky bucket.
Exactly. So tactically, just to continue on this exact topic because it's so juicy, is okay, the ICP is critical. You being one of the foremost, GTM leaders at the entire company, you're playing a heavy hand in kind of identifying and scripting of what that ICP looks like. But then tactically, how do you actually get sales, marketing, partnerships, CS, et cetera, truly locked in on the same ICP? Like really wrapping your arms around that to make sure things are aligned, which involves process. It involves compensation plan adjustments. For example, introducing clawbacks if there's churn, and for AE comp plans. Like, how did you kind of approach getting everyone aligned on the same ICP, given that you just told us it's the most important thing for tech companies to get right?
Yeah, and I'm not convinced that we've done it perfectly. I think there's always room to improve, and it's something that we constantly work on. Is this idea of how do you bring everybody along for the ride? But it started with acknowledging the problem, right? So, like company all hands, let's acknowledge the problem. Like we had a churn problem. And here's where we've diagnosed some of the issues. Then it's okay, here's how we plan to fix it. That doesn't necessarily bring people along for the ride, right? But that is first step, acknowledging the thing that you're trying to solve for. Then, what we tried to do was go function by function and talk to them about how this would benefit their individual functional goals. So on the sales side, like look at the data, and we'd walk them through it. Based on all of our back testing, like this is real data. This is not just forecasted, like made up shit on a spreadsheet. Based on real data that we have, tier A and B accounts, it almost sounds like what you hear talking about partner-driven deals. Like they are going to close faster. ACV is typically higher. They stick around and grow. So the likelihood of any churn clawbacks down, the likelihood that you'll see a benefit based on expansion growth goes up. And so there is a huge benefit to you focusing your time on energy on these accounts. CS, where you have objectives around NRR, churn, retention, expansion, same thing. Like let's walk through that. Product, right? You have activation goals. Tier A and B accounts, they're activating far faster using a broader feature set of the product. Marketing, like let's stop filling the pipeline with garbage. Pretty easy. So it started with those functional conversations to show everybody the benefit to them. And then reminding them, right? So if you say it once, people are going to forget it. And so we'd have pretty regular conversations in our pipeline meetings, our ELT meetings, our leadership meetings, just about how it's progressing, the impact of changing our focus to be very, very zeroed in on these types of accounts. And all of it was paying off. And so we just kept reminding people like it's working. Then the bigger shift is going from those individual functional goals to having like crystal clear company North Star, and every function very clearly having their targets, their compensation where appropriate, kind of aligned back to that North Star. And a lot of it was anchored to like NRR for our tier A and B accounts, like North Star. And then everybody ends up being laddered back to that. On the ELT, every executive has sort of the same variable structure, including sales. It's not an outlier. So all of that really, really helped. And then all of our operations, again, we have a great RevOps team. So, making sure that any of our workflows, automation is all built around those A/B accounts. That's a huge help. Every dollar we spend, how is it going to help us with A and B accounts? Like, that's kind of the critical question. So all of those things, which are just kind of like ticky-tacky over time, really, really help drive that alignment. Yeah.
I mean, that's a fantastic playbook. Definitely going to be one of the headline topics from this conversation. And anyone who's in a executive leadership team, C-suite role, if you really want to drive behavioral change, being vulnerable, starting the conversation, all of this stuff is really helpful. But like compensation plans and quota plans are one of the quickest and shortest paths to doing that. So as an example, for your BDRs, like don't comp them and retire quota on like demos booked, like demos taken, right? And for that's why I'm a big fan for partner managers as an example. I try to resist the urge to give anyone a pipeline added goal because that is just too upper funnel for my liking. So it's like, can you comp them like AEs on close one revenue, right? Because then you're forcing that right behavior, and then even indexing on even net revenue retention. I think that can go a long way. Cool.
Well, and then just to touch on the partner side, I think, so to any marketers listening, I think if you're a marketer and you're not holding at least some part of your objective to NRR, I think that's a miss. I think you want to show that you're in it, not just for like pipeline and source revenue, you're in it for sustained growth. You're in it for NRR. On the partnership side, I would say the same thing. But I would also suggest one of the issues that I saw in our own partner program was like, we just accepted everything a partner would drive to us. Like, you want to refer somebody that raised their hand and said they want to spend some cash, we'll take it. Leads to churn, leads to potential bad fit. People don't want to have the uncomfortable conversations with partners to say like, listen, we got to stop compensating you on some of these leads. Like, let me walk you through exactly what our ICP looks like. Let's boost your compensation for a good fit, but let's get crystal clear on exactly where we're going to be able to drive value together. And like, let's not waste our time on anything else. And so that, even flowed through our partnership team as well.
Yeah, I love that. One thing I love about you is how transparent you are as a leader. And as an anecdote from my own experience, my previous post, we just realized on the ELT team that we were just losing a ton of money on deals that we had AEs and partner managers try to source that were like less than 200 MRR. And so we made a broad sweeping decision where it's like, I think we got to a point where it was like, yeah, I think it was 200 MRR. If you source any of those deals, no one got any money on that. And there was this big uproar. And then so what I did was I asked our head of finance, I said, I need a full P&L breakdown on that cohort of deals compared to the larger deals. And I sat my entire team down and have a real adult conversation. I was like, here is the real unit economics of how much it cost our business just to close one 2,400 ARR deal. And it was just like, obviously all the metrics are in the red. I was like, would you as CEO of the company, would you want to pay people to go after these deals? Everyone sat there like, no. And it's like, okay, well, now we're all on the same page. Let's focus on not just the bigger deals, but the better quality fit. So I like how you kind of frame that, Tyler, of just like, hey, like have really important, transparent conversations with your team so they actually understand the reasoning behind decisions, right? I think that's so important, especially for the frontline teams who feel like a lot of times they're being told what to do. Cool. Right. We're in the last segment here. So we're going to have 5 quick hitting questions to wrap up to kind of take us to the finish line. So we'll keep these answers shorter, but nonetheless important. So the next 2 are on partnerships. So the first one is, as a partner tech vendor, this is just a curious question for myself. Do you feel pressure to have a killer partner program yourselves as a partner tech vendor?
That's a good question. I think so. I know you want short answers. The answer has to be yes, right?
Right.
Like you can't. It has to be yes. Now there could be a conflict there, right? Like we also want to be very data driven. We want to be merit based.
Of course.
We don't want to just be doing shit because we feel like we have to do it. And so there was always this slight concerns like, what if this doesn't work for us? So there's that pressure to, drink your own champagne, do the thing that you're evangelizing. Luckily, it's worked for us, right? Like, again, same thing that you would hear others say, our partner-driven deals, higher ACV, close faster, better NRR. So all of that has played out well. But for sure, I think there is pressure to, build a playbook that you would be proud of sharing with others.
I appreciate the transparency and honesty in that answer. The next question on that line is, how has the partner program evolved at PartnerStack in your 5 years? And, what are you excited about kind of in the next phase of the partner program at PartnerStack?
Yeah, I think, some of it I've alluded to. Yeah, I think the evolution went from, standing it up for the first time, being focused on trying to just get as many partners as possible into the program, which I don't think is advice that we would give. It's not about volume of partners, but I think there's that natural instinct of like, let's just get as many partners into the program as possible, see where things land, what works, what doesn't. Right. It's kind of moved from that, working with anybody that said they'd want to work with us to a smaller group of partners that we can go deeper with. We can get real strong alignment with. We have great ICP overlap. We have the obvious like better together story, and really anchoring to that. That's been the shift. And I think the evolution of it is continuing to, in all likelihood, find more technology partners to integrate with to really expand kind of the value that our platform can provide and where we integrate. And very tactically, like we're just seeing RevOps become such a core part of organizations that we're seeing a lot of RevOps agencies becoming the owner of PartnerStack as a piece of technology and, being responsible for how they unlock their ecosystem data across their whole go-to-market. And so probably getting a little bit deeper there, working with more RevOps agencies and kind of refining what that looks like, that data unlock across go-to-market. That's where we'll probably go next.
Yeah, I love that. And I if you were to ask me, hey, like what's the number one trend you're seeing? Because in my position, I have a unique opportunity to look under the hood of so many different partner programs at really great companies. The number one trend I'm seeing is partner prioritization. And you mentioned earlier, ICP is the most important thing to get right for your customer base as it relates to sales and marketing. I also believe that nailing your ideal partner profile is the singular most important thing to get right, because you get what you ask for. And the opportunity cost of investing in trying to sustain too many partners is a death knell in most cases. So I totally agree there. Next one for you, number 3, to get us home, is we have to talk about AI, obviously, at least at some point. So the first question on AI is, where should partnership teams be experimenting with AI right now? All right, before the wave passes them by. And if you want to expand that to more just GTM in general, I'm happy to go that direction. But partnerships, GTM marketing, where should people be focusing on experimenting with AI?
So I think, let's just start with, you should be experimenting with it, right? Like, I think let's just start there. And that sounds like an obvious statement, but I still hear a lot of people suggest that it feels like cheating. They don't want to actually acknowledge that they're using it in their role because it feels like, well, if I'm driving outcomes with it, do you even need me? I think, what that leads to is a lack of sharing internally, a lack of a culture of experimentation. And so I think ideally you start with just trying it. And when I say trying it, like whatever you have access to, whatever your company policies are. If you can use ChatGPT, like use it. If you can use Gemini, use it. If you can use something like Lovable, like use it. Start to experiment, play around. Like my whole thing is everybody has these moments in every single day where you think it would be really cool if I could do this thing. Chase that down. Go figure out how you might be able to do that thing. So like just broadly, I would say get comfortable testing, experimenting, knowing it may not lead to anything, right? It might feel like a waste of time. You just spent an hour trying to do something and it didn't work out, but you probably learned a hell of a lot in that hour that's going to make it faster the next time. Then, like very tactically, I think you nailed one, is partner identification, partner prioritization. I think there are, again, like so many signals out there that can help you hone in on new partners you should be working with, thinking about working with. Data around your existing partners that can help you prioritize activities. I think that's one. The routing that we talked about, like figuring out how do you connect maybe a lead driven from your marketing type of partners into your co-sell resell partners. Like I think there's a lot that you can do there. And then I think there's, things around enablement. Can you scale out and personalize enablement partner to partner versus them getting all the exact same type of enablement? Can you build agents to help, one partner manager support in almost real time, the partners that they're with? I think there's a lot there. And again, there are things that I think people should expect their technology to be able to do and provide. And, you can, look at roadmaps and see what's coming with whomever you're working with. And you can also, again, you can experiment internally. I think there's, again, the data that you have out of your ecosystem is probably the most powerful set of data that you have. Really starting to think about how you can leverage that, I think is the critical piece.
Yeah, a key takeaway from that is just start. I think that's really the simplest place to start. In terms of where you can start, I think asking simple questions to interesting challenges that are relevant to you, and also copywriting. A lot of people struggle, especially early stage, to be persuasive, especially when speaking and proposing and asking for things from more senior level people at your company. So at the very least, there are some low-hanging fruit use cases to dabble in before you start getting into like all the intimidating coding, workflow, data system stuff. So it's a great place to start.
Yeah, even on that, like, I'll just say, like, I've seen people struggle with understanding folks that we integrate with, right? They're like, I don't actually understand this integration of what the value is. And I mean, part of that is our fault, right? Like, we should, on the marketing side, be able to articulate that better. But I've seen people write incredible prompts to help them understand the unique value that they can bring to their customer to talk about one of our integrations. Like even just things like that, like to your point, like use it as like your little buddy on the side that's going to help you whenever these questions pop up.
Amazing. Love that. Absolutely. All right. Second last one for you. We're going to finish with leadership and teaching mindset, which are things that are both passionate to both of us. We both teach. You at University of Toronto. I was privileged to be a guest lecturer of yours. So I'm just curious, what is it about teaching that ultimately gives you a lot of fulfillment, and kind of how, what kind of value is teaching bringing to your life at this point in your career? When you're obviously a really busy man, you're a family man. It's hard to find the time for it, but clearly it's important enough for you to keep doing it.
Yeah. Oh man. I just like it. And it's hard to pinpoint exactly what it is. I think, certainly you can point to, it's nice to see students grow and hit the milestones that they were hoping to hit when they took your course, right? They come in with dreams of what they hope, what they learn is going to do for them. So actually seeing that come to fruition, I think is really, really cool. I think, for me, I hated school. I didn't like school. I did not do well in school. I always struggled with the fact that most people teaching me never actually did the thing that they're teaching. And that always drove me nuts. And so part of it was just that. Like, that's how I got into it, was the opportunity popped up and I was like, hey, you know what? I'm going to try to teach the way I never felt like I was taught. And like that alone, like it's something I enjoy. But yeah, I think it's absolutely the student piece. You meet so many different personalities. You see so many different people in different phases of their career going and doing like really cool, interesting things. It's hard to not fall in love with that. And it keeps you on your toes, right? Like, I've always had, again, like very candidly, I'm in marketing and startups and tech. There's always a fear that like you are going to age out of this. Right? You're going to lose touch of what actually is happening in the market. And that fear comes from when I was agency side. I saw it all the time. Like I saw older CMOs, you can call it ageism, but I don't think it was. It was you stopped learning. It's not that you got old, it's that you stopped learning. And so by teaching to me is the greatest way to continue learning. I'm getting challenged every week by students. I got to teach new stuff. To teach new stuff, I got to go try it myself. And if you're not teaching new stuff, those students are going to tell you, like, they're going to be like, what is this shit? Like, I would have expected to hear this 15 years ago. So that's my wrapped up.
No, I love it. I love it. I think that's a brilliant place to end. And I totally empathize and relate to everything you're saying. I mean, candidly, for me to leave my full-time corporate life to go full-time on the Partnership Mastermind, one of my biggest imposter syndrome anxieties was, well, if I get out of the game, how do I stay sharp? Like, how do I like stay relevant? And then to your point, I realized I'm like, holy crap, I am staying fresh just by running these programs, and I get to talk to 20 plus really talented people from top companies in all these industries. So I'm learning in real time. Actually, I'm learning more. I'm not actually doing per se, which there's value in that, but my exposure, I'm seeing what's happening in real time in the market. So I appreciate you saying that, because teaching absolutely is a way to stay relevant and stay fresh. And I absolutely hate this stigma that those who can teach, those who can't do, or no, it's the other way around. I hate that quote. It's held me back for far too long in my life. So anyone listening who's like, you know what, I would love to get into teaching even as a side hustle, hopefully people like Tyler, who we look up to, can give you a lot of confidence. But cool. With that, we'll wrap up this episode. Really appreciate your time, Tyler. This was honestly one of the most enjoyable conversations I've had all year. If you love today's conversation, we'd love for you to rate, review, and subscribe. We've got plenty more conversations like this coming your way every week. But until next time, thanks so much.